Hello, welcome to Flashy Tools, and in this video we're going to start looking at animation. Let's start by having a closer look at the timeline window, which you can see up here. Let's start by looking at layers. So as you can see here, we have layer 1. Just as in Photoshop, if you've used Photoshop before, you are able to add new layers and produce different things on each one. So if I went back down to layer 1, and I were to produce a circle, and then go up to layer 5 and produce another blue circle, they will be on independent layers. It should be noted that any layer that's above another layer is going to be viewable over the object. So if I grab layer 1 and I were to drag it above layer 5, you can see that that red circle is now visible, entirely visible, and it starts to eclipse this blue circle behind. And again, if I were to click on layer 1 and drag it down, now the blue circle is entirely visible. If you need to get rid of a layer, you can click on it and drag it down towards the bin. Now, even though it doesn't physically look as if you are dragging it down to the bin, as soon as your mouse is hovering over it, it will delete that layer. Bearing in mind, this is different to rearranging the order of the layers. So if I click on layer 6 and drag it just below layer 1, you can see it's left it just underneath layer 1. Whereas if I were to click on layer 6 and kind of move my mouse down to the bin, that's when it deletes. Another way of deleting is if you just click on the layer, right click on it, and click delete layers. That will also delete the layers for you. Now, let's have a quick look at the frames. Here is your frame counter. Okay, this is what you'll be operating in when you're animating. Every 5th frame is colored in grey for me, and the frames are fairly visible. However, if you need to change the size of the frames, just come over to this tab and change the size here. So we can go from tiny to large. I normally just keep mine on normal. And within this frame timeline is where you're going to be adding your frames to your animations. Let's have a quick look at how the frames work. So at the moment, we currently have a white blank frame here. It has a circle on it, which means it's a keyframe. If I were to draw an object, that frame now turns grey. Let me insert another frame just to give you a clearer view. I'll right click, insert keyframe, and I'll right click here and insert a blank keyframe just so you're able to see the difference. Now, this was the same kind of frame that we had beforehand. That indicated that nothing existed on it. Whereas this is the sort of frame we have now. A grey frame with a black dot. Let me highlight the difference to you of what the different frames represent. You have two different types of frames. A normal frame, which you can insert, and a keyframe. Now what a keyframe does is changes the state of an object in every animation. So if you were to have a ball to move from one to the other, you would put in lots of different keyframes to animate the ball bouncing. If they're just a normal frame, it's because you want the animation to linger on that state in the animation. Let me just briefly show you. So we're going to have the ball move from this side of the screen to the other side of the screen. On frame 5, I'll just click, insert keyframe, not blank keyframe. On that keyframe, I were to move the ball. You can see that on frame 1, the ball is there, whereas on frame 5 it's moved slightly. I'm going to do this very roughly, just so you're able to see the difference. So now, over the course of these 20 frames, the ball moves from one side to the other. So, just to reiterate, a grey frame means the frame has been filled, whereas a white frame will be blank. That means that there will not only not be a change to the animation state, but it will also mean that on that stage for that layer, nothing will exist. So if I wanted nothing to exist on that layer for 10 frames, let me just convert that to another. So if I wanted nothing to exist on that layer for 10 frames, I would create another keyframe, and then on the 35th keyframe, I would duplicate my ball, and the ball would be back. Let's have a quick look at these tabs just above the layers. This first one here is the outline. If you were to click on this space just underneath, it will only show you the outlines of the object on that layer. If you were to press this tab just underneath the lock, it will lock the layer. This will mean that on this layer, on layer 1, you will not be able to interact or modify any of the objects. So as I'm trying to click, as I'm trying to select the ball, it won't allow me to until the layer has been unlocked. And the tab just underneath the eye is for you to be able to toggle whether that layer is viewable or not. So I were to click now, and you see that big red X goes through it. It means that nothing on that layer is viewable. Try to click it again. Everything is now viewable again. We'll also very quickly cover frames per second or FPS rate and onion skinning. Frames per second basically dictates the animation quality. So at the moment it's 24 frames per second, which is a TV standard normally. I want to drag this back to the bottom and press the enter key. It'll play through my animation for me. If I were to reduce this frame rate down to, let's say, 5 and play through, it plays through slower. And that's how it will view when you render out your animation. If I were to turn the frame rate up, let's say to 35, it speeds up the animation. And onion skinning, which is this tab here. Onion skinning is a technique that animators use where they view the previous frame as a reference to be able to see where they want to move their next frame. As you can see, after I've clicked the tab, up here we have a grey box that's appeared on the frame count. And we're able to drag and extend this box to 2 frames, all the way up to all of the frames. Basically what this will do will show us the previous versions. So now that I'm on frame 35, if I wanted to drag the ball in the same location as it ended in frame 25, I can do that because I can see where the ball ended on the previous frame. So that has been a quick look at the timeline window. In the next video, we'll start to look at creating symbols for your animations and then into tweening and actual animating. Thank you very much. Take care.